Welcome everyone to our webinar series on PCI DSS. I thank everybody. There's quite a few attendees online, and I thank everybody who was there. Um, there are some many from India, so it is 2:30 in the afternoon, but there are many who are logged on from overseas. See from some from US and UK, so probably it is like midnight over there. I really appreciate you taking the time and the interest that you've shown in being here, and I look forward to doing a good job to make this time worth your while. So we've chosen the topic as managing your outsourced provider, service provider, especially for PCI DSS, because the weakest link in your chain is always your outsourced service provider, assuming that is you have a good structure internal to your organization. Now, starting off, I'll begin the presentation and jump right into it, but please make a note of all your questions, and I'll taking it up towards the end of the presentation. And also, no need to make any notes because we'll be hosting this video. You'll be sent an automated link, so you'll be able to see it along with what I'm saying, plus the content which is being shown on the screen. So just relax and enjoy. Thank you again. First things first, some statistics from Symantec. Half of the cyber attacks worldwide in 2015 were against businesses with less than 250 workers. So this is basically the small businesses, the small companies who are providing critical services. It could be supporting your infrastructure, it could be supporting your firewalls or network infrastructure, or it could be processing your payments, or even managing a help desk. Now, they can't afford to invest $1 million or more in appropriate cyber security cyber security infrastructure and processes. So they become a very vulnerable target for hackers to get down to the card numbers, because instead of going after a big bank or a big merchant, which is most likely or more likely to be having the infrastructure in place, it's always better off, the hackers are always better off going after a small player, and that's where the major vulnerability lies. Now, just to put a face on the name about me, a few of you already know me, but for those who don't, I'm the director for VISTA InfoSec. We are a vendor-neutral consulting company, and we are also a PCI DSS certifying body. And I've been working for more than two decades, like 24 years almost now, and primarily only in data security. That is after it started back in 1995. So that was about me. I'll go ahead directly. It's a no-brainer to outsource. Like we say that to all our clients who are there. Focus on your business, your core competency to provide the services. It could be banking, it could be merchants, or you could yourself be a third-party service provider to a bank or a merchant. It's always better to leave expertise job for the experts. So it doesn't make sense for everybody to have your log monitoring systems, to have your internal audit organizations, to have your internal maintenance departments and all, and then your cost for doing business escalates through the roof, and still you're not sure of doing a good job. So outsourcing is definitely required, and almost all the clients we have are outsourcing some part or most of the processes to third-party experts. So nothing wrong with it. Everybody outsources. A few lessons from history on the other side. Now, I just put down three over here. Doesn't mean that only three happened, but the topmost. There is TJ Maxx that got hacked back in 2007. 94 million records, or customer records were leaked. And then there is Target, 70 million records, Home Depot, 56 million records. In all these cases and more, the vulnerability arose from um, third-party service providers. So yes, I'm playing both sides. Not really. That is, yes, service providers, third-party service providers, outsourcing is important, but at the same time, unless you manage your risk with your third-party service providers, you will yourself be in a lot of trouble, because these are big companies. So they definitely went with good companies, and they had a lot of money to boot, but still things went bad. Remember, this is what I say: when you're outsourcing responsibility, not accountability. The buck stops with you. If there is a hack at your outsourced service provider, you are answerable to your clients, to your to the end users, whomsoever you are working with. You cannot just say that, okay, I had given the printing of the card numbers to a third party and they got hacked, so you talk to them. No, it doesn't work that way. The client knows you. Whom you work with is really your problem. So understand, you cannot outsource the golf swing. The final responsibility, accountability lies with you. You may get somebody in golf to carry your, to be a caddy, to carry your golf sticks, to carry the putters and stuff, or to drive your cab around and stuff. But finally, you have to stand there, measure the swing, and actually take the swing. It's finally boils down to you. So remember, you're outsourcing responsibility, not accountability. In any parlance, in any legal court, by PCI body, by any regulatory or statutory body, the responsibility, ultimate accountability lies with you. You cannot just say that I give it to that person, that company, and they made a mess. So what does PCI say about outsourcing? Let us take a quote from PCI directly. That's the information supplement, third-party security assurance. Let's read this in detail. The use of a TPSP, third-party service provider, does not relieve the entity of ultimate responsibility for its own PCI DSS compliance, and neither does it exempt you from accountability and obligation for ensuring that cardholder data and CD are secure. We have been to so many companies, we know so many companies where they simply feel, oh, okay, we don't do any reconciliation, we don't do the printing, it's all given to third party. Yes, but you're a bank, the client, the end users have taken the card from you, your third party service provider gets hacked or loses the data, it will be you whose head will be on the chopping block. So do not forget that. So the agenda for today, will be looking at how to scope out your third-party service providers, doing due diligence, correlation with PCI, written agreements and procedures, what all to keep in check, how to monitor your third-party service compliance, and in the end, how does it meet the intent of PCI DSS 12.8 and 12.9. A few abbreviations, like the definitions be done first. An entity, an entity is any organization that has a responsibility to protect card data. It could be a bank, you could be a like an acquirer, or you could be a um, you know um, yeah, you could yourself also be a third party service provider in itself, and you are outsourced it to somebody else. So you could be a bank, you could be a merchant, doesn't really matter. You're holding card data, so you are the entity who's responsible for protecting. A third-party service provider. This is where the gray areas start. It's a service provider, is a business entity that is not a payment brand. So you're not a Visa or a MasterCard. Except that you can still be a third-party service provider. Directly involved in processing, storage, or transmission. There is processing or storage or transmission of cardholder data on behalf of somebody else. Now that somebody else is not the end user. So if somebody is taking care of my card data, so, you're not doing it on behalf of me, you are doing it yourself. And the second part is something that very, very few people are aware. It's not just companies who are taking care of your card data or managing your card data. It's also companies that provide services that control or could impact the security of cardholder data. So they have nothing to do, they don't touch the cardholder data, but they're providing a service which can impact the security of your cardholder data. So they are also considered as a third-party service provider as far as PCI is concerned. You could be a third-party service provider to a third-party service provider. That's a nested or a chain third-party service provider. For example, we are compliance service providers to many payment gateways. Now, these payment gateways are not are themselves a third-party service provider to a merchant or to a bank. So we form the next in line nested or changed third-party service provider for these third-party service providers. Let us look at a few examples. What defines a third-party service provider? TPSP. It could be a call center, it could be an e-commerce service provider, organizations that process payment on behalf of the entity. It could be even be a fraud verification service or a third-party payment processor or cardholder data processor. You could be destructing data, you could be providing secure storage or facilities. So what it means is basically even if you are sending your cardholder data in a tape to an organization, let's say an Iron Mountain, so they don't have access directly to your cardholder data, but they are still a third-party service provider for you, which needs to be reported to PCI. Or companies that transform a cardholder data, provide software as a service. It could be providing web applications, because let's assume you're a bank or a merchant or whatever, and you have a software developer who's a separate company, and they are providing a software through which you are accepting payments. Now, if they have not done their job properly, it can compromise cardholder data for you. I hope you're getting what I'm saying. So if there is some web application vulnerabilities lying in the application that they have developed for you, end of the day, the vulnerabilities gets reflected on your organization. This is something new for you now, I guess. Point of sale companies, look at this. This is what I was saying earlier. Infrastructure service providers. So they could be managing your servers, your networks, your uptime, or your firewalls, your routers, your link uptime. It could be somebody just hosting your data center. That's also a third-party service provider. You cannot say that they are having no access to my service. Yes, they don't, but whatever they do reflects on the information security of your organization, because they are looking care of your physical and environmental security. Even your HVAC and cleaning services. Target, if you saw the top three examples I gave earlier, Target as a merchant was hacked because their HVAC service provider provided an what to say door into their network, because the HVAC service provider was not doing the job properly. I don't want to get into details. You can look it up. So this is, if I may summarize it up, there is, if you'll have to ask a few questions. Will they store or process or transmit cardholder data? No. If they are yes, then do the due diligence. We'll go to that later on. If if even if they are not processing your cardholder data, processing or storage or transmitting, you have to ask whether they are responsible in the protection of cardholder data, or whether they are involved in the process of access control to your cardholder data environment, or will they even have incidental access? What do I mean by incidental access? Like, we have a client who is providing desktop management service, desktop support services to millions of desktops across the world. Now, they are inadvertently accessing desktops that may hold cardholder data. Now, they don't have any access to the application, any access to the data below, just patching and checking if some errors comes up or printer not connecting and stuff like that. That's what they are doing. But since they have incidental access, because they are touching a system which is hosting cardholder data, they are still a third-party service provider as far as PCI DSS is concerned. Now, okay, you'll have to ask the question whether they pass your risk assessment. We'll come to that later on. Determining the scope. Now, what are the services that they are going to provide? And whether they're a part of payment ecosystem, or whether they are going to provide a service which will impact the information security of a card data environment or the cardholder data in itself. Or what is the technology and system components that are used by the TPSP to provide the services to you. And this is something that you need to ask a third-party service provider, whether they have any third-party service providers which can impact this entire ecosystem. This is the last point, is something that companies typically forget, or don't know, or just conveniently look the other way. Now, whether they are, what other core services are housed in the facility, because they may be doing many other things. They may be giving you 3 services, but they may be doing 10 more services, but you are taking only 3. So you have to check whether those 7 services have any impact on your data security. Also, how many facilities other third-party service provider have where your data may or may not get moved out to. So this is also where you need to check what are the locations or the points of presence of your data across the world, if I may say that. Anyway, do due diligence research, because see if they are starving or if they are starved out in some manner. Obviously, they'll be trying to cut corners, most probably, that is, to make some money, and that can impact your organization's security posture. So ask a few questions, something like the financial stability. what is their reputation, what is their experience, and do a reference check on that. And most importantly, the insurance coverage. So if they are providing some sensitive services to you, in case they get hacked, are they in a position to take care of the liabilities? Their nested third-party service providers and also their agreements with them. And last but not the least, compliance with your own organization's third-party service provider. What I mean by that, as a part of your organization, you may have, let's say, a password policy, which may say a password having 14 characters, uppercase, lowercase, and the works, history of maybe the last 7 passwords and stuff. But this third-party service provider who's managing your infrastructure or taking care of your data or working on an application simply has a password policy which speaks about an 8-character password, and anything is allowed. So in that case, you may say they have some password policy, but if it's not in sync with yours, they will end up compromising on your security posture. Breaches, if they have occurred the last time. Now, let us be a bit gracious and say breaches can potentially occur and they may have occurred, but what really matters is after a breach, what have they done about it? What have they learned? And what is the remediation status of that breach? Is it still open? Is it closed? You need to check it yourself. And the business continuity. So in case there is a breach, are they prepared for that? But the most important part in this is, in so many audits that we have done, in so many consulting services that we have provided, many a time that we have seen is that the primary data, the primary site has all the works, all the security systems in place, processes in place, but the disaster recovery site or the business continuity site has practically nothing. So it shouldn't happen that at the primary site everything is fine, but the moment they switch over to the business continuity mode, everything is open. So that is something that you need to take into consideration when you're doing a due diligence. This is the chart again. You select, does they have a validated PCI DSS compliance? If yes, then it is very good. Insist and request and insist, and don't go ahead without that. Whether they have a properly filled up and attested SAQ, ROC, AOC. The SAQ is self-assessment questionnaire, the registration of compliance, attestation of compliance, the data flow diagram, network diagrams. Now, does the TPSP have evidence to prove their, see, if they don't have any of these things, SAQ, ROC or AOC, you need to check whether they have evidence to prove whether they meet the intents of PCI DSS. If yes, then again ask them to give an attested SAQ, ROC and AOC to you. If they don't have it, typically PCI will say that, okay, check whether they have a risk treatment plan to move towards PCI compliance and check the project plan and goals. But in my opinion, don't just move ahead, because many a time you've seen that these plans, risk treatment plans, never comes to fruition, and by then you are so much deeply enmeshed with their services that you can't even move out, and you then have to somehow swallow it and move ahead, which is not the right way to work. Document validation, very important. That is what we say when we are working on any assessment, on any consulting for PCI DSS. And if they have a third-party service provider and that third-party service provider says that we are PCI DSS, we ask them for an ROC and AOC and check whether the services that our client is going in for, whether that is covered in the AOC and ROC. Don't go for it otherwise. It could be that they are providing 10 services, but only 7 are covered in the AOC, the other 3 are not, and you are taking those 3 services. So just saying that we are a PCI DSS company is not really the right way. Now, ROC has to be completed by your internal security assessor. Now this, for your information, internal security assessor is not an internal designation. It is a certification provided by PCI SSC that they have to attend and pass. So do not confuse an internal security assessor with an internal security officer. An internal security officer is an internal organizational chart designation who may or may not be a certified PCI internal security assessor. Please keep that in mind. Now, if they have any external IPs, they have to be scanned by an ASV scanner. A self-assessment questionnaire is required, and that again with the attestation of compliance done by a QSA. And then what if they are not a PCI organization? In my opinion, don't go for it then. If they are providing critical services to you, very critical that is, because otherwise you have to do the entire PCI process with them and even take on your own head the PCI liabilities. But still, if you want to go ahead down that road, then what I suggest to you is go in for a high flow data flow diagram showing the TPSP's interface with the entity's environment, the network diagram, the patching, secure coding method. It means the entire thing. You have to do it in entirety. PCI DSS checks with them. And the list of entities TPSPs, result of their internal and external vulnerability scans, and last but not the least, their own security policies and operational procedures to check whether they are in sync with your own policies and procedures. How you assess the security levels of your organizations, or sorry, the compliance levels of the TPSP. Check the risk assessment or do a risk assessment yourself. Take into consideration everything, whether it is the security governance, human resource practices, the physical securities, third-party external entities, configuration management, access authorization, incident response, malware controls, segregation and security controls. Again, now the last point, I'll just dwell on it for a minute. Your third-party service provider may be having 20 other clients. How are they segregating your data from theirs, and how are they ensuring whether a compromise of some other client doesn't inadvertently compromise your own data also? So that is again something that you really need to focus on. But if you have if your third party service provider is in itself PCI compliant with valid AOC ROC, then most of these pain areas are taken care of. It could be a physical security, third party, external entities. Everything needs to be managed out. Okay, going ahead. Engaging a TPSP, third party service provider, a few things. Set the expectations. That is, initially, as change occurs annually, gain the transparency. This again, you have to do it at all times. Obtain information about PCI DSS compliance. Again, initially, you have to ask and keep on checking annually, because PCI DSS is an annual certification. It's not like an ISO that is done every 3 years. So this you have to check every year whether they are maintaining their PCI DSS compliant, in case they say that they are PCI DSS compliant. Um, Going ahead, considerations and documentation. Take into consideration everything. It could be some legal requirements. It could be some, the acquirer consideration. It could be that your bank has said that in addition to whatever PCI DSS says, I need this 1, 2, 3 things to be done. It could be Visa has mandated something. It could be MasterCard has mandated something. It could be even the law has mandated something, which is not something that is covered in PCI DSS. So whether their documentation covers all these areas. Now this is a small chart that I have put up. So for each of the requirements of PCI DSS, you need to write down very clearly who is going to do what. So the firewall reviews, is it going to be done by the entity? Is it going to be done by the TPSP? Depending on what you've signed up for, that is. And what is the evidence that you need to be maintained for that? Encryption of transmission or public networks, all of these things, each of the requirement, you need to check what is going to be done by the entity, what is going to be done by the TPSP, and what is the evidence that they need to provide at the end of it. Now that brings me to the end of my time, and also the end of the presentation. So I already have a few hands raised over here. So in case you are in please feel free to what to say, just drop in your questions, whichever they may be. We still have a few more minutes to go, and I can take up maybe 3, 4 questions. Um, yes, so think about it. Drop me a line with your questions. Okay, there are a few coming in. Just give me a minute. Okay. 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 This is just a repetition of what I had said earlier. This good person, he is asking a good question, that is, we have totally outsourced PCI processes to a TSP. It's not a TSP, it's TPSP. Is PCI still relevant for us? Well, yes, it is. It is relevant for you. And as I said earlier, even though you have outsourced your PCI processes to a TSP, PCI DSS is still relevant for you. The accountability still checks with you, and you still need to do the due diligence and the checks that we had discussed earlier. Hmm. Okay. Okay, I've got four more questions. I'll quickly breeze through it. We have an online portal for taking orders, which is outsourced to PCI compliant TPSP. We are only taking phone orders now. Is PCR relevant? Well, that's a very good question that you've raised. Okay, let me elaborate on the question. This fine gentleman over here is saying that they are compliant, they have outsourced the PCI compliance, who's doing all the order taking from the online portal, and this gentleman's company is only taking the phone orders. Now, the question that I need to ask you is your phone order process taking card numbers? If yes, then you need to go in for PCI DSS compliance. You cannot, so PCI DSS is not just an IT thing. That is, okay, if data is coming on the IT, it is, it's not required to be done. It's required to be done otherwise. No, because we have done so many audits where, companies are using old time swiping machines where the card number used to get printed on those, copy rolls. Even if that is happening in an organization, or was happening in an organization, and the data is stored, you need to get work towards PCI DSS compliance. Okay, next. In view of the huge risk that you have highlighted in the presentation, and also the pain to actually work with a TPSP, shouldn't we just go ahead and build our own PCI compliant infrastructure and processes? Well, you can, but the point is, you would need to spend a huge amount of time and money. I don't know your organization size, so I cannot really comment on that. I would suggest you to at least partially move the processes out, at least from the compliance management part, so that you don't have to hire 20 people in your company to just do PCI compliance. Get it done by people who have been doing it on an ongoing basis, have the right processes in place, have the right infrastructure in place, and that makes life more easier for you. Okay, just two more questions and we'll end it. If I ask you, which is the one process in PCI DSS which you believe I should outsource? Okay, so you want me to tell you which is the one PCI DSS process that you should outsource? Okay, so, and that's a tough one. In my view, the number one thing that you should be, most of the organizations should be looking at outsourcing, unless you're really very big, is log and SIEM, log management and correlation. Log management, log analysis, that is something that that requires a very dedicated workforce in place, needs a huge level of technical expertise, compliance expertise. So I always suggest that in case you are not a huge bank or a Walmart or something, look at outsourcing your log management and reporting. Okay, my last question. I'm sorry, I'm running out of time, already out of time rather. Do I need to subscribe to WAF services also? Okay, now WAF is not a mandate, but it is always helps. It always helps. It's always one more layer of protection, but it's not really a mandate. But if you are running an online portal, if you're exposing some sort of websites or a payment gateway to the net, or even an application, not just to the net, even to your own clients that you're providing in a controlled environment, I would still suggest you to get a WAF in place, so that if somebody else's environment gets hacked, the hack doesn't get translated to you directly. So okay, that's my top 5 questions. I'll quickly run you through who we are. Like, we as a company, we are 13 years old, and we are into from day one only into information security and infrastructure advisory. We provide a lot many things. We are a PCI, PAQSA, 27,000 HIPAA, VIPTs, all those things. We have our own SIEM services also. And a few of our clients, we work with the largest companies in India and overseas. We have an office in India, US, coming up in Singapore. We are there in UK too. So that's a thank you. I really appreciate you being there. My apologies for the hitches in the beginning. And soon, just in the next month itself, we plan to have a webinar series every month. So we'll be having a good topic coming up in PCI DSS in the next month also. Most probably it will be related to the log management features, which again was the number one question that is asked to us at all times. Again, I'll not be selling our SIM services or something. It will be basically to answer queries related to log management and correlation. So thank you again for your time, and I wish you a very pleasant day ahead. Thank you. And do drop me a line if possible with what you think about the webinar and how it went for you. Thank you again for your time. Bye-bye.